The Loki Season 2 finale makes the God of Mischief's 12-year-old line so much deeper.
I am Loki of Asgard, and I am burdened with glorious purpose.
Things come to full circle in Loki Season 2, Episode 6, in perhaps his final on-screen appearance. Along the way, there were many Easter eggs, callbacks,
this time,
and references.
Pumpkins.
And the finale has provided plenty for us to get into. So here's everything you may have missed. Loki Season 2 finale opens with Marvel Studios' logo flipped. Similar to the opening moments of Loki's Season 1 finale, which brought the series to a climax with his He Who Remains, by repeating key conversational moments from the past decade of the MCU. Marvel's logo was changed in the Season 2 finale, running backwards. It's a simple and clever moment. Obviously, this is an appropriate cut for a show that takes place primarily outside of a linear timeline. But it's also a perfect setup for the finale, where Loki discovers how far his powers, including the manipulation of time, extend. Episode 6 references other key moments from previous episodes. After Loki realized he could not save the temporal loom by affecting the events of Loki's Episode 4, Loki went back even further, from Missed Minutes and Renslayer's attempted coup, to the arrival of Obi.
Nice to meet you!
Several moments from Loki Season 2's story were revisited. These Easter eggs worked because they are part of Loki's time travel and reflect the series' titular character's entire journey.
Won't it overheat? No, it's not going to overheat, because we don't allow it to interface directly with Timely's adaptive exponential computing system. With all those upgrades, it will allow the loom to scale the capacity to manage the battle of the rock.
Episode 6 returns to Loki Season 1 finale. Loki's attempts to save his TVA fail further, forcing him to take drastic measures. A series of Easter eggs in Loki Season 1 saw Loki return to the Citadel at the end of time in the Season 2 finale. From the scene with Loki, Sylvie, and He Who Remains in the elevator to Sylvie attempting to kill He Who Remains, Episode 6 contains numerous references to the Season 1 finale. Episode 6 alludes to Loki's supposed fate. In Episode 6, it is revealed that the person responsible for Loki's loss of time is He Who Remains. He did this to make Loki realize that no matter how much he tried, he could not save the multiverse, as the temporal loom will always collapse due to being a safeguard to protect the sacred timeline. He remained and decided to lead the TVA with Loki, hoping that this would be an opportunity for Loki to kill Sylvie. Interestingly, he states that those who remain will lose regardless of Loki's choice.
But the outcome to this equation remains the same.
Either the temporal loom endlessly collapses and destroys the multiverse, or Sylvie must die, tying into the supposed destiny that Loki loses eventually.
You're going to lose.
Am I?
It's in your nature.
Episode 6 contains Easter eggs from the series premiere. This reveal from He Who Remains that Loki will lose regardless of the latter's choices prompts him to visit Mobius in Season 1, Episode 1. Loki ends up in a time theater where Thanos is shown killing Loki on Earth at the beginning of the series. This scene contains several Easter eggs from Loki's TVA prison uniform, his mission collar, and the character of Mobius, which started the show.
It's funny, for someone born to rule, you sure do lose a lot.
Cleverly, this was introduced by giving both episodes the title Glorious Purpose.
Glorious purpose.
Loki's line, "For all of us," is copied from a scene in Thor 2011. One of his best moments in his entire series, just before he prepares to sacrifice his own future to destroy the temporal loom and give everyone else a chance of a better future than the tyranny of the sacred timeline. Loki turns to Mobius and Sylvie and says the line that brings his entire story full circle. In 2011's Thor, Loki attempts to destroy Jotunheim but is undone when Thor breaks the Bifrost Bridge. Loki's response is to scream,
I could have done it, Father! I could have done it! For you!
When he originally said it, Loki was attempting to appeal to his father and prove himself, all feeding into his own selfish aims.
No, Loki.
But in Loki's finale, he uses the same line to show how far he's come. He's now willing to make a real sacrifice for everyone else.
For you. For all of us.
Loki receives a new costume that reflects his past, present, and future. We've spent so much time with Loki in simple casual to semi-formal attire that we've almost forgotten what he looked like throughout 3 phases and multiple movies in the MCU. In his final moments before taking the throne at the end of time, radiation from the time loom tears his robes and his magic creates a new suit. His classical horns transform on his head, his cape grows back, which breaks down into a bunch of branching timelines where he continues to live. You can see Loki's new costume that reflects his past in the MCU and his Marvel Comics origins, and more. Loki becomes a literal god of stories. After Loki Season 2 Episode 5 changes Loki's title to God of Stories instead of God of Mischief, this change is interpreted literally in Episode 6, by gathering the branches of the many worlds and holding them together to control them all. Loki becomes a literal god of the story. Loki serves as the god of the multiverse who physically brings all the stories together, rather than the metaphorical story rewriting that was advertised in the last episode. In a nice twist to Loki's new title, this Easter egg will be a physical manifestation rather than a theoretical ability that changes the story. Episode 6 mentions Asgard's world tree, Yggdrasil. After Loki ascends the throne at the end of time and uses shockingly powerful magic to keep all branches of time alive, the image shrinks to show all time and existence in a beautiful tree-like shape. First appearing in the 1963 Marvel Comics Journey into His Mysteries Volume 1, Issue 97, Yggdrasil, also known as the World Tree, is a gigantic energy formation resembling a tree that connects the 10 realms. Although there are some variations in his portrayal, the image seen at the end of Loki's finale is clearly a reference to Yggdrasil. Loki's greatest fears come true. After the TVA's new purpose is established, we see a final shot of Loki holding the multiverse alone at the end of time. Not only does this cement Loki's very important role in the MCU's multiverse infrastructure, but it's also an incredibly dark Easter egg to Loki's greatest fear: loneliness.
I don't want to be alone.
Loki is now completely alone and friendless at the end of time.
I want my friends back.
Your friends are back where they belong.
But without them, where do I belong?
It was the sacrifice he made to prevent the branches of the multiverse from being destroyed. So, will we ever see Loki again in the MCU? That's a good question, and the answer can go either way. After such a dramatic ending, it would be a little strange to see him come back into the movie and say one line.
Glorious purpose.
There has been an unusual debate about how Loki's ending will play into the larger future of the Marvel Universe. The debate centers on if the Loki finale was designed so that Marvel has an off-ramp for Kang, or whether it's serving to set up the grand Kang conflict to come in the future. There is a recent infamous insider pre-air quote about how Marvel is on Kang after the Loki finale, but those who watched seem to be divided. There's evidence for both sides. On one hand, it could be the culmination of the Kang conflict. It was a brilliant ending in which killing Kang is not the answer. In fact, not killing him is one of the only paths forward. But Loki forges a new solution. That, in effect, is beating Kang at his own game, and honestly, a pretty good resolution for the villain's arc. It's also the case that really, there's just not that much Kang setup in the MCU so far. Kang was obviously the main villain in Quantumania, which is generally agreed to be one of MCU's worst movies ever, and that version was killed off. Then, the other place he's appeared in both seasons of Loki, Timely, and He Who Remain variants are effectively done. It's unclear how Kang is supposed to fit into future MCU movies, but it appears unlikely he's the main villain in any of them, even if he was meant to appear in some form or another. But this is Marvel, and Marvel movies and shows are based on comics. And in the comics, no one stays dead or retired. It's possible that this Loki will remain TVA's guardian forever. We'll likely see another Loki reunite with Thor at some point. This Loki could be very useful in Avengers, the Kang Dynasty, or Secret Wars, for example, as he knows how to defeat Kang. We'll have to wait and see what happens in the next few years. What do you think? Comment down in the section below and don't forget to like and subscribe.